Welcome, everyone, to our second Disrupting the Algorithm, a monthly check in with our Disruptors Network where we talk to alumni, past mentors, instructors, actors, directors, and anyone who has been part of our Disruptors family. My name is Julio Salgado. I am the co creator of the Disruptors Fellowship, a program of the Center for Cultural Power, where I also serve as a senior program manager. As I mentioned in our last episode, we've decided to pause our program this year to go back to the drawing board and see how to better improve and better serve our creative community. In the meantime, we want to highlight the creative individuals that have helped us build this program. For our second Disrupting the Algorithm guest, we have the amazing Melanie D'Andrea, who has been part of the Disruptors family since we started back in 2020.
Woo!
Director and yes, say it, girl. Woo, 5 years. Um, Director and filmmaker Melanie D'Andrea tells stories about those who dare to imagine and dream new possibilities. The outsiders, the revolutionaries, the offbeats, and those who are before their time. Oof, beautiful. Born in Venezuela and raised in South Florida, D'Andrea has directed on television, documentaries, commercials, music videos, and short series. Last year, they directed and dedicated 4 episodes for NBC Telemundo's Vuelve a Mí, which is now live on air and on Peacock. They are working on a feature documentary about drag kings under their company Collective. Melanie is an NBC Universal Launch and Telemundo 2022 Fellow, a Ryan Murphy half initiative mentee, and a two-time Directors Guild of America Award recipient for their films South Arcadia Street and Stand. Their work has been featured on Attention, BET, Tribeca, The New Yorker, Billboard, and Refinery 29. Last year, they served as an executive producer for our annual Disruptors Showcase. Aside from those accomplishments, Melanie is truly an amazing human being. Melanie, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I know this is gonna be really corny, but I'm living very presently because of everything going on. And I'm like, so much warmth from you. But hearing that, I'm just thinking of all the teams behind all those projects, and it's
Mhm.
just like so much gratitude for everyone along the path is what came to me. So yeah, I'm just happy for all the individuals we get to collaborate with.
Right? Yeah, I always say like I'm like we get to do this, right? Like it's just as creatives, period. Um, we get to tap into that part of our, I don't know, brains, mind, whatever you want to call it, heart, and really get to experience this creativity, right? And yeah, it is possible because of all those people. And I know it could be a little bit awkward and hard to hear your bio, but listen, this podcast check-in, whatever you want to call this, it's about leaning into those accomplishments and beautiful things. And I'm here to be your cheerleader, Melanie. I'm here to tell you
Is this
like
a podcast or a therapy session? Because it's turning
it's
to feel like
you
a
know
therapy
what?
session.
Do you know what? Sometimes I wonder if my calling was to, be a therapist as well. Because I don't know. I just love talking to people, but I really, to be able to tell you this to your face and admire you to your face. Thank you for letting me, doing that. So let's get corny. We're gonna be corny.
Listen, get used to some corn, some tears, some woo-woo. Like it's all, you can't
Every
have that without me on
Yeah,
this.
every time with Melanie and I hang out, there's always laughs, tears. We won't go into all the details, all the conversations. Oh, we might. Who knows? Stay tuned.
Stay
But
tuned.
I can't believe it has been 5 years, Melanie, since we started the Disruptors Fellowship. You have been a key component of this beautiful project. Can you remind our listeners how you first got involved with Disruptors? I know the story, but can you tell us?
We got to bring it back to 2020.
2020.
There's like, what's interesting is that in history we studied certain dark ages, and then like the dark ages are now just compounding on ourselves. We're like, remember
Really?
2020? That was just 5 years ago. But I got involved because I was producing for the Hollywood Climate Summit. It was the first year of the summit. I'm not a part of it anymore, so I cannot take credit for what it's become. But that was our first year. We were supposed to do it in person. And then a month before, the world shut down. And we had to learn quickly how to produce online and produce it so that it's animated and, it's like live TV production, but we're trying to figure out how to do all of this remotely. So it's like our own arrogance to still do it made us all learn the skill to produce and try to push these technologies to be more interesting. And then that just kept compounding. And then that's how I got involved with one of Fabiana's events from Center for Cultural Power, which was about like summoning artists to what do we do in these times. And that's how I got into Disruptors, because I was already given an opportunity in other projects, other like activist entertainment platforms, to experiment of how to compel audiences, So the Disruptors were so gracious to allow me to also experiment and push the technologies. So, I didn't, and back then, like, talk about ambitious. I think we had like 35 to 40 actors from all over the world with mixed internet connections. Like, again, people, we didn't know how to do this yet. And so we were like sending Ethernet cables to people around the world. It was just, I love that we did it anyway, Julio. Like the fact that y'all were like, yeah, we're gonna figure this out. Um, and we still have those recordings.
Yeah, yeah.
I love to think about them, about those recordings and who was in there and what they're doing now. It's wild.
It's very wild. And I, listen, I think, one of the things that at the organization overall, when we find someone that gets us, when I find someone that gets me, and really the energy is there to, um like, oh, I don't know how to do this, but we're gonna figure it out, right? I don't know if it's the immigrant mentality of like, I don't
Oh.
know, I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna get it done. And yeah, those were, you're taking me back to 2020. I was still in my Boyle Heights apartment, and I was also in a long distance relationship at the time, so I would actually, fly to the Bay Area. And I know this was like a time where nobody was coming, but like the airports were probably one of the cleanest places, like,
But for love,
for
but for
exactly,
love,
for love, for
are
who
we not gay?
doesn't do that? Gay love. But I remember, being in my ex's apartment and doing the live events on Zoom, and just seeing you, Melanie, and that kind of energy that you brought to this space was just so, I don't know how I don't know how you do it, but that's always been your superpower. And I was like, every year, whenever, we showcase time is coming, I'm like, we're gonna hit up Melanie. Hopefully she's available. And so we thank you. We thank you for being part of the program. Now, so much has happened in the industry, since the program started back in 2020, right? Back then it was Miss Cobina. And then
Covina.
we had
Mistress
this,
Covina,
yeah,
who
Mr.
does not have consent, does not
No
understand
consent.
consent.
No consent whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Then we had the strikes, then we had this election, last year that was happening while we had the showcase. So although, all things have happened since 2020. Aside from the community that we built, what keeps you coming back to Disruptors every year?
Well, I first am going to respond to what you said, and thank you for asking me to be back. I come back every year because you ask me to come back. Uh, A, but B, like what we were talking about, that there's and sorry if you hear something, I have an air filter because LA has burned, and I have an
Yep.
air filter now inside, so I'm hearing it turn on. But I think about what it's like to not have to explain or bring people in to the spirituality and the sacredness that is creating something together. And I think that with the Center for Cultural Power and Disruptors under your leadership and everyone else who built it, like I think of course, Gare Vasco, I think of Gina Young, they are theater um, mentors and artists who like hold space sacred for a story to become. That's why I come back, because I understand like in and we're not just woo woo, like people have a lot of success within the disruptors, not only because of the program but because of their own will.
Yeah.
May they be immigrants, may it be their backgrounds, they find their superpowers, so they tend to have like other successes that we can't even, like I can't fathom that I'm around these people. And why I say that is like here are people who have held both worlds, which is the world of Hollywood and the world of entertainment, and how sacred and golden and powerful it is to tell a story. That's why I come back, because I don't have to translate
Yeah.
so much of these things, and rather I get to sit back and learn from others who are in that practice.
Yeah.
Like how lucky that I get asked back, Julio.
Oh, no, we're very thankful. We're lucky and I'm glad, like, again, the feeling is mutual and in a weird way sometimes I'm like, that's why, the powers that be continue to work with the people that they work with constantly, because once they imagine a problematic person finding a problematic person that gets them, and they continue to build that system. And so, like, with us is it's never perfect, but to find that energy with every person that I work with, Jesus, who's doing our editing for this podcast. I'm like, I know
Legend.
how he works, and it's just finding those partnerships, whether when it's romantic, when it's friendship, when you find that creative partnership that gets you, and you don't really have to understand, explain things. And when we do, because let's be honest, we've dealt with some things, that, oh, how are we going to deal with this, and having the problem solving skills that you have, Melanie, really has added so much to our to the program, right? Now, speaking of sort of things that we've learned, my next question is, what's the biggest lesson you have learned in your time as both a digital producer, at our very first virtual showcase back in 2020, to being an executive producer for our second in person last year? What are some of the
Ah,
lessons? What are some of the things that you're like, oh, which is, it's weird, and while you're pondering and answering that question, it almost feels that every time we encounter something, and for next year, like, okay, we're ready, but then something else happens, and then, like, it's like, but I guess the every year we kind of practice that muscle and that is the business that you're in, baby. It's about that problem solving skills. But yeah, if you're thinking of some lessons, what would be some of the lessons that you think that come to mind when in the past five
we
years?
only have 30 minutes, right?
We
I
It's okay to extend it, Jesus.
no,
Cut it out.
I understand if you cut me.
No, never.
But you know, gosh, because yeah, digital producing, executive producing, and the year before that, I also got to direct two of the pieces,
Yes.
Kai Dorsey and Goulet Isse.
Shout out.
And I think in all the processes, like what's so interesting is because this process is always messy. I'm like, if you're not creating something or producing something, if things aren't going wrong. And I say that with a smile because when you have a community that infuses it with love, like I think the ultimate teacher in the disruptors is like, nothing's gonna go, there's nothing wrong with putting love in it.
Hmm.
And I just think of last year, we had a situation in one of the scripts where some of the wording was considered fat phobic
Mhm.
for an actor.
Mhm.
And I hadn't caught it. And sure, there was shame or blame as a producer that I'm like, oh, I didn't get ahead of this or I didn't know. But what I can tell you is that because this actor has been involved with us for years, they said it with love and they're like, because I want this place to be better. Like, what I'm saying is that the biggest thing I learned is that when you have really cultivated care and respect, people really come to you to make things better. And you can have that perspective of trying to do that in a nurturing way. And it's not a like I'm pointing the finger and blaming you, but we can solve and improve and be messy if we work from that perspective. Like, because I don't always get to do that. I try to in all my projects, but I'm often not the producer or I'm often not the person with the money. And you can't always control that energy. But I'm like, oh, right. Like, I'm allowed to fail
Mhm.
and be treated with love through it.
Yeah. And you know, with the beauty and the, you know, I keep saying this word lucky, blessed, but really to get feedback, right, on the work, on something that you've sort of pour your soul into, in this case from the fellows. You know, this instance where somebody's like, oh, this language, it might be a good idea to, you know, change it, and for the fellow to be like, oh, cool, yes, you know,
Yes.
learning. You don't know what you don't know, but also something that you've mentioned, the communication, right, and the way that we share the feedback. It doesn't have to be mean. It doesn't have to be, because to be honest, it a lot of the times within our progressive circles, and the calling out and the cancel and the this and the that, and you you can't you can't expect somebody to learn if you don't kind of take the time to explain why this could be considered quote unquote problematic. I don't know. Maybe we should need to find another word for problematic. I think problematic is overused, but something that would improve, you know, improving your work, and to, as you said, to be able to work with an actor that can bring this up with trust. It's because you, Melanie, have created a space where that trust is you can see it and you can feel it, right? And so give yourself props for making that space. And yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy because, you know, we don't it's every year it's a new team of folks that you working with. Yeah, we try to work with similar actors that we worked in the past, but you don't know how people are going to take some of the feedback, you know. And I assume that you, as a director and as a producer, have experience.
Oh, I mean, of course, these are positions of power that you're
Yeah,
discussing, but
yeah.
ultimately, and, I can't, anytime that you're saying something, I'm like, oh, the metaphor to our politics, oh, the metaphor to our country, right? And, I'm going to mention something that you said, but bounce off that, like, right, if we only focus on being right, our community is going to be so small and our coalition is going to be so small. And I have no interest in that. Like, we're doing ourselves a disservice, especially when we are amongst disruptors. These are all individuals that, despite like however society told the story about them, they're like, no, I'm chartering a different story for myself and I am going to propel this different story to the world. So we're in a room of practitioners who have broken through these containers that people put over us. And there we can't get along. And there we can't work. Like, then we can't do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, if we can't do it there, and I think that's it. Like, there's an intimacy and the beauty because I'm like, oh, we're all in the service of the story that needs to be told. And when we have that, there is a humility. And trust me, my ego needs to get knocked down often to be like, right, we're in service of this thing. And ultimately, the story will be what's right, hopefully, and has its
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
But then going to what you're saying, like, um, you know, we there is so much hitting us and so many no's or perspectives that are contrarian to how we want to live our lives, whatever. But I'm like, most people want to do a good job,
Yeah.
and most people want to have others feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we just need to inspire those aspects of people. And and it comes from movement work, and it comes from people who've been in coalition. Like, it's not dissimilar to creating art. I think this is the practice, and it's constant. We will be tested.
Yep. Yep. Constant. Yeah. And every year is something different, but at the same time, it's like, oh, we've been here now. Like now, 5 years in, there's nothing really, because when we first started, shout out, Gina Young was, one of the co-creators along with Kade
Yeah.
Vasco. I was so afraid to fail and like to be seen, like, who am I? This undocumented artist who just likes to draw. Like, why am I trying to be part of a program that is trying to make a little dent in the industry? But it's because I'm like, wait, no, as a consumer of this, of this products, I want to have a say in what's being put out there. And so I think everybody that has been able to either move on to writers' rooms from our fellows, or have today, shout out to Dr. John Paul. Today, March 25th, is their book launch.
Dr. John
Dr. John
Paul,
Paul, shout
killing
out,
it.
our very first guest of
Uh,
the algorithm. But in the work that you see, I'm like, oh, okay, see, this is what you were part of. I always see disruptors as sort of this, we don't teach you how to write. We don't, we're not gonna do that because you already bring in the talent. I see disruptors as a sort of like, and follow me here. I don't really follow I don't know much about
I'm
racing cars.
listening.
I don't follow I don't the racing cars, but when the racing the cars and then they stop for the fuel and
The
the
pit
change of the
stops. Yeah,
tires.
yeah, yeah.
The pit stop.
The
We
pit
are the
crew.
pit stop. We're the pit crew. We're the pit crew that are like,
That's it.
you've done this all this work,
Yep.
but you need to be fed. You need to rest. You need
Yeah.
to like sit with the project, and you have here a crew of people who are here to support your needs. So that's
And
how.
they're an incredible design,
Yes, 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 yes.
breaking, what are they called? Records. They're doing that.
Yes,
Like, you're right. They just need, that's why we are of service. So,
exactly.
so beautifully
Yeah.
said.
I'm gonna
And
need to illustrate that. And
you should, because you can do that. I cannot draw. So, but please do.
yeah.
And what you said before, Julio, I'm like, thank you for having the audacity to push through any imposter syndrome.
Mm,
Because what I like, I think audacity, what you mentioned there, I'm like, I'm so glad you did. And it built momentum because the right people, or like people who cared, showed up, who were like, this is an incredible vision.
yeah.
It's a watering hole. Every year, I say some sentimental speech in front of everyone that I'm like, this is my watering hole. Every year, I'm like, I am refreshed. And we are like that group of, when I look out at all the actors and the directors and the disruptors, I'm like, here are all people who had the audacity
Mhm.
to be who they are and say the strange stories in their head.
Love.
Like, because I'm like, what people are mixing, I'm like, this is so cool. Like, regardless, I'm not here. It's like, this isn't DEI. This is just cool because we're letting people just be
Yeah.
and say the things that are in their head. I'm like, thank you for being audacious to make this like slasher thriller about this
But
like, it's just the combinations every year. I'm like,
a
I
hundred.
love human.
100%. If
Yeah.
if if you're there's any producers, any showrunners, we have we have all the things, right? If you go to our Artist Disruptors website, you can find all the genres that a lot of our fellows alumni, work through. So there's no excuse that I can't find a writer that is going to write about it. No, we have them. We
If you
have.
want to be surprised at the combinations, because again, these are individuals who have very specific life stories
Yeah,
and backgrounds that you're like, what? I
yeah.
didn't know a sci-fi could do that because,
Mhm.
I wasn't watching Indian media like you do, or I was, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if you're a little jaded as an executive and you want a jolt of like a possibility, like reach out to them. I mean it. Every
A
year I'm like,
hundred, a
dang, this
hundred
is
percent.
dope. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what I love about some of our mentors that we work with is that they themselves, have been part of similar relationships, right? I remember asking one of our mentors, I'm like, hey, you would be a great mentor for a program. And they were like, but I've only have written for like two shows. And I'm like, perfect. You're perfect. You're two shows in more than a lot of people that have had that experience, right? And so like there's this idea that you have to have had many years of expertise in the industry to be a mentor, but I don't think so. I think that it's the younger writers who should be the mentors because they're having the experience that not so long ago they were part of similar fellowships.
Mm.
You were part of, fellowships. What would you say you learned in those fellowships that you apply to this program when you're on the other side, right, as a producer of a fellowship?
What a great question.
Think.
There's no us versus them.
Mm,
Like, because, you know, God, NBC or, I just think of like, as a little kid, I could have only dreamt that one of them would be like, hey, your kind of weirdness is something that we want to mentor, you know? Um, and what I want to say is that a lot of people want to integrate and people like suits or not or whatever, like we can have this us versus them. And ultimately, I think like we actually have similar goals and there's a lot of heart in it too. And you could be that freshness. Like when I'm now a producer of a fellowship, um, I know that we're both there to learn from each other. That I'm like I am of service to the disruptors. And every year, because of that, and because there's a lot of performance in these fellowships, I also want to say that like there are some that really are about it, that really want to propel your career and are dedicated to propel your career, and others are checking off a box,
mm,
and others are part of the same toxic dynamics of Hollywood and selection processes. And why I say that is that I know, like every year, I'm like, my goal is to get as much of these individuals, and I know that's not what we can always do into a writer's room. Like, that's my job is to produce this as best as I can and push our resources as much as I can so that people see the world they have in their head and meet with them. Period. Like that's what I'm there to do. I'm really there to try to propel your career, but also in these dynamics, I know that you're bringing freshness to us and you're bringing newness to us and you're also disrupting the disruptors.
mhm.
And like when those fellowships have really accepted my voice, be like, because we want you to change how we do things. That's what I would hope for disruptors, that we aren't just like we're the system and we're bringing you into it. It's like, no, you are shaping us, is what I've learned from being a part of those fellowships.
I love that you're saying that, Melanie, because that is literally how you know, I approach the work every year. And while the program is happening and I'm checking in with the fellows, a constant question that I ask them is, "Hey, what can we do better?" And sometimes they'll be surprised, like, "Wait, what do like I've never been asked that question," or they've been part of another fellowship and like they don't check in with us like this, and I'm like, how? do you not check in with the people that you're serving to make your program better, right? Like, I think if we've gotten to the point where we've gotten and we've made the shifts that we've had to make this year, one of the shifts being, hey, we need to pause because the
Yeah.
the the industry and the world was not the world that is now. When we started back in 2020, and we need to pause and not just keep going, keep going, keep going, right?
We
To
have to
really,
have vision and not
yeah,
just react. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
any artist that needs to, like, hey, let me stop. Like, I myself have
Yeah.
done that in my own artwork, and
Same friend.
and sort of
Same.
like, yeah, like
Same.
pause and like, what do
What
I
am I doing?
what
What's
do I
my vision? Because again, everything is like, you must do, you must do, you must react. I'm like, but if we act?
Yeah,
What if I build the vision versus just, being on the defense?
yeah, it's
Uh,
you're gonna really see get depleted
mm,
and not, and not do. On the other hand, I still see my creative process as like something that I at least I need to like sketch out, and I need to be doing something creative, not sharing it with the world, and we're gonna get into this because we are, part of the a lot of the time we are living in a social media world that is constantly asking for creatives, like, build, produce,
yeah,
produce, put
make,
out, put
make,
out,
make,
put
make,
out,
make.
make, and
Yeah.
so it almost, and I'm seeing it, and because I've slowed down my production and my put my output,
Yes.
I'm seeing the results in the numbers of views and all that stuff, and I'm like, I have to remind myself, like, you did this piece, you put it out there because it felt right, and not because of the numbers, and it's hard not to think about it, right? We recently took a mini trip. No need for details of the trip. We should
There
take
was a
a
road
trip.
trip. There
There's a
was a
road
road
trip.
trip.
Shout out to Sierra Santana, who joined us in the road trip, and Brisa.
Uh,
It
a
was
Disruptors road trip. Are you kidding
disruptive.
me?
We need more. Um,
Call
and
me
and
any day. Road trips and road films are some of my favorites. So let's go.
I'm taking my first road trip with my husband. We've taken little road trips here and there, but we're actually going to the Bay Area, so it's gonna be a like a six hour drive,
Great.
and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. It's
Keep a journal.
yeah,
Keep a
we
journal. The
talk.
conversations, I just love that you're present, you're with the road.
I
There's like an
love,
ephemeral
yeah.
living life adventure part of being on a road trip. I'm a true romantic, as you can tell, but I'm like,
We love,
keep
we
a
love,
journal.
we love. But in our last little road trip, we had a conversation with our friends about social media, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm mentioning some of this sort of, myself being like, oh, I'm not getting the likes, but I'm not really doing it for the likes. I'm doing it for the message, right? And when it hits, and people are telling you, "Oh my God, the thing that you made really touched me in a way that you're trying what I was thinking, or you're writing that piece that I was thinking about." Um, but you recently decided to be part of that Meta exodus, right? People who are leaving Meta behind. Can you tell us more about that? And it's funny because we are posting this to the grid, and
I won't see it, but I trust what you're doing.
but tell us more about that.
Okay. I feel bad. Why I'm blushing is because, God, that road trip, people would be like, look at that bird. And I'm like, talking about birds, let's talk about Instagram and how it's our oppressor. And like, I kept realizing, I'm like, I'm too passionate about this. So I'm laughing that you brought it up, but like, I'm trying to like, how do I say this succinctly? I'm Venezuelan.
Uh-huh.
So what's happening in the United States, I've already seen it happen. More so, my grandparents fled World War II, Mussolini, Italy, and Franco, Spain. So, like the work of regimes to oppress, to take truth, to remove journalism, the discipline of honesty, the discipline of keeping a democracy, like I've seen this happen. We all have because we're curious about the world and but why I say that is between the election and vitriol and hatred and then our beautiful city of Los Angeles burning. And by burning I mean the size of San Francisco plus the size of Manhattan burned in our city. And seeing the algorithms, like I'm like something broke in me, Julio. I'm like there's something I can't press play on. And I must be honest that all of us putting all of our creativity and our resources and all of money for advertising going to one platform is so dangerous. Meta owns Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. And I'm like, I think I just woke up to I'm like, newspapers are falling because we're not funding them. We can't we're not supporting local economies because like I just woke up to I'm like I cannot as an artist who what I do and the stories I tell and the people the stories who I tell are really trying to build a world where many worlds exist and thrive. And this platform is sucking that dry. And it's taking the resources from other people to build their imaginations. And it's forcing us as artists and all of us to create constantly and not be present and silent to have a vision of what are we doing? We're just reacting to an algorithm
Yeah.
built by billionaires who ultimately want to make AI to replace us. Like I know I'm being very intense, Julio,
No,
but I'm
please.
like,
This is
that's
the
the
space.
truth. I'm not, and I'm like, because when like, I was the second year Facebook existed, you had to have a university account. And so social media for what it meant to millennials, and
Yeah.
we were so hit hard about it. For us, it meant democratizing, it meant
Mhm.
building our new ways of living. Like for us, it was part of creating this world. But now it's sucking that world dry. It's making us feel like we're enemies. It's making us feel like it's not possible to do something else. So much so that people can't imagine their lives outside of a platform that's only existed for 10, 15 years. I'm like, our imaginations and our human will is bigger than this platform. And so that's why I'm like, I cannot engage with this because this thing, especially in the last 6 months, has escalated to not care about truth and to not care about the sustainability of things that keep us healthy.
Yeah.
So why I must be part of something else.
Right.
And I am here. This is also my pitch. I'm like, anyone out there who's like figuring this out of how we're doing this in Los Angeles or how we're organizing like it's 2004, how we're communicating like it's 2004, like
Gasp.
reach out.
There was a time, right, that you were not, you didn't necessarily need to be on the social medias to come together. I remember, even to party, I remember back in 2001, you used to call a number to get the address for the party that you were going to, right? And so you're
Were
right.
you we were all partying, right? We somehow figured out where to go.
Yeah, yeah. You needed
Um,
maps. You needed paper maps.
and I'm like, and I get it. I know it's not as simple. Like, I'm not here
Yeah,
to, this is the only solution.
yeah.
Like, there is no one solution to anything, but I'm just like, our human creativity has more to this. Like, we can figure out how to connect in platforms that don't make us completely dependent on them because that's a toxic relationship.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, we, how do I say this, Julio?
No, I completely and our conversation that we had that day, right? It was like from my POV is like I think we need all of them, right? And none of them are because back in the day we still had the media that was there was evil media, right? Like I think to think that the one thing is going to be the thing, right? I think that going back to us being artists and us finding alternative ways of sharing our work, I think about during the Riot Girl movement and how they had like a media blackout because of the way that they were being portrayed, but they were sharing zines, right? Like artists have
That's what I'm
always,
saying.
yeah,
Yes.
the Black Panther party,
Oh,
how they would, Emery, shout out to Emery Douglas, the artist who would,
God. They
create their own
transformed
newspaper and transfer.
movement
So
work.
exactly, right?
Yes.
And so there's always been an alternative to the mainstream, and right now social media is the mainstream. And so I don't necessarily think, for me as an artist, like I'm gonna continue using these platforms for my own work, but also there's other ways. There's being in person. One of the things that I'm excited about is like doing art builds, right? Like I'm doing art builds with community, and going back to those things that a lot of the times, it has something big has to happen in order to like for us to be like, oh, we got to try something different because that thing, it's not
Right.
working anymore, right? And so I thank you so much for this, for bringing light into this, and as always, artists are at the forefront of alternatives, and I'm gonna, as this continues to be part of it, I would be curious how you are finding other ways of sharing your work, and which takes me to my next question is like, you know um everything feels so horrible right now, but is there
What are
after
you talking about? What are
after
you talking
but
about?
even in dark times there's still good things. So what are your yeses? What are the things that are right now
Hmm.
inspiring you? What are you watching, or maybe music that you're listening to, artists
Hmm.
that you're excited about that are not necessarily on the grid that you are finding in other ways, because you're still on YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube, so you get to see
I
this.
mean, I can't wait to cringe at what I say or not say on YouTube. But I think for me, Julio, I think about why I do what I do, and I think of like little Melanie who fell in love with cinema. Like still
Mhm.
to this day, one of my favorite things to do is popcorn in a theater, feeling everyone react to something. And what I'm saying is that part of this vision, to answer your question, I'm like getting people together. Everything's being designed so that we're separate. Things are being designed in a very strange way. I've seen this sci-fi before, and I'm not interested in that sci-fi film. And I love technology. I'm like, how do we integrate tech to physical spaces? Speaking of Oakland, there's so many artists doing that work in Oakland, right? That it's like, I think of Black Terminus, and Black Terminus is an app developed that brings you to spaces where you look at art and it becomes augmented reality. So you get an experience you only get if you show up in person. And then you learn, oh, this Women of the Black Panther Party mural that's coming to life, there's a museum there. And I can call Jill Christina and go into a museum and now have a whole experience with a community.
Yeah.
That's that's what I'm interested in. I'm like, how can we, and I love cinema and TV, and I'm like, how do we do this next version that comes back to us being in person and dialogue with each other, right? So that's what I'm figuring it out. And messily and vulnerably, I'm sharing, I'm like, this is my transition, but I'm not there yet. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm hoping to do. But I'm working on like I brought that up. I didn't even realize I brought it in and folded it in, but it's part of a documentary episode I directed about a muralist out of Oakland, and she's an Afrofuturist muralist, Rachel Wolf Goldsmith. If you want to look at an example, A, she's younger than me, and B, I'm like, she's a total mentor to me. Like, just being able to watch what she does, and I hope people feel this blueprint that she's a muralist and she was a canvas painter, and life and issues made her a muralist, but now she's actively making community through these things. Like she's always integrating these components, and the community then acts, and other artists create now spaces that didn't exist. And now she has a whole studio that's alive with other people's events. And what I'm saying is I'm like, what is inspiring me, Julio, and the content I'm ingesting is more historical. I'm like, who are the people who had these blueprints in other difficult times? Like, I'm not recommending the show because it's kind of taking this woman and made her like this. What tends to happen to women who are liberated, they make her like this very sexual, like, but Lydia Poet is the first Italian woman lawyer from 100 years ago. And but what it brought up, I'm like, Lydia Poet figured it out. Like she became a lawyer, was disbarred for being a woman, and then fought her whole life. And by the time she was 60, she was became a lawyer again.
Oh,
And she transformed law for Europe. And why I mentioned that, I'm like, I'm interested in these weirdos who figured out weird things to do to solve the problems in front of them, regardless of how strong they were told the Goliaths were. They're
yeah.
like, I'm sorry, Goliath is Goliath. Goliath is going to punch you down. And they're like, I think I can trip Goliath. That's what I've been ingesting. I've been reading a book about the radical history of women in music by NPR. Like, again, and you are one of those artists to me, Julio, the Center for Cultural Power. And I'm not just saying that. I'm like, I'm just studying the blueprints to see what the blueprint is to press play on today. Because
100.
I'm kind of like what you said, I'm in transition, but I'm so lucky that I got to tell that story. And now I'm seeking funding to keep that Drag King documentary going that we started filming years ago. But now I'm like, let's go. Like it's weird, it's difficult. I When we started the documentary years ago, I didn't know drag was going to be the epicenter of the scapegoating. I was just like, oh, Latino drag kings in LA are doing something interesting. And now I'm like, oh, they're doing something revolutionary.
Yeah,
And the end of the day, they're just Americans trying to live their dream.
yeah.
And so I know that was a really verbose way, but like that's why I'm talking to you invigorated because I've been ingesting that and not the algorithm.
You like go old school bugs, like
Guy,
reading
okay, let me tell you,
books.
you flip a page like this.
It feels I can't I never got into like what is it ebook or like reading on a tab. I can't. I can I need oh shout out today's bug.
How
You
did you
know
so happen to be there?
it
And
just so happens to be here today. Our first disruptors guest, disrupting the algorithm guest. But yeah, but like old school books and like reading them, there's something to be said about going again. There is a blueprint to the past. We of course have to then do our own version of that, right? But always being led I'm same. Whenever I'm feeling stuck, whenever I'm feeling like, my mentor Gustavo Arellano always told me there's no such thing as a writer block for immigrants. Like you keep going. I appreciate that, but at the
that's
same
so
time, I'm like,
profound.
I'm like
Yeah, that's really
whenever
profound.
but whenever I do get that sort of like I'm tired, nothing is coming out, right? I was trying to do this like daily comic strip, and it's hard. It's hard to keep up with with doing something like this. But I go back to the music, I go back to what were the artists of that I love and enjoy were doing, right? And so
Mm.
my hope for this, this disrupting the algorithm is so that if you're ever feeling stuck, like listen to this conversation and the things that Melanie have to say, what Dr. John Paul has to say, because it's okay to pause and listen what other people are doing and lean in to the creativity and the curiosity, right? And it's hard, listen, it's hard to pause, it's hard to stop, it's hard to not do what you know your instinct tells you to, like, I need to respond with a poster, and but sometimes it's okay to pause. But with that said, Melanie, we're coming to our closing of this beautiful conversation. Like I said, we can jab and talk
Oh,
every
I I'm
day.
like only 5 minutes have passed between us, it feels like.
Yeah. But is there anything else, Melanie, that, if people cannot find you on the grid, like, where can people find you? Where, anything else that you would want to share to people as we're closing this conversation?
That's so funny. Yeah, it's like you can't find me on the socials. Um, my website,
Boom.
melaniedandrea.com. And I'm going to probably be doing a newsletter and I'm figuring out how I stay engaged and keep these stories going. But so please just reach out to me, my email, we'll figure it out, y'all. I have a phone number. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Um, and I guess what I want to say is that in taking that step back, that's interesting that this became like a theme of our conversation, the importance to step back. And I'm like, trust what you individually have for this world. Like to listen to yourself and the blueprint, like we definitely need everybody to like and find the word that and this goes back to what I was saying because yes, I'm going to talk about meta again. I'm sorry, but like use the word that you're comfortable with. For me, dismantling sounds great.
Mm.
Like, but maybe for you it's decentering, or maybe for you it's innovating, or maybe for you it's like entertaining. Whatever that word is that makes you do something bold, like go for that. And like that's how I feel right now, I guess. And being in front of you, Julio, or like what happens to me every time I connect to this disruptors energy is just like how dope the human imagination is. And like how really we're just on the other side of something new we've never seen.
Hmm.
Like, because we as creatives, I see it all the time. Even seeing your illustrations, I'm like, how did you put those things together so quickly and like with this in mind? And I'm like, why can't we think that the world or our society can be the very same? That suddenly it looks so different than we imagined. So that's what comes to my heart. Again, like I am cheesy, I am corn, I am all these things, but it's only because I've tapped into the disruptor's energy that's how what came to mind to share. So thank you for inviting me to connect to this energy. I am a student of disruptors.
Yes. We thank you. We thank you for sharing your superpower and your superpower being like, hey, I'm here to learn and I'm here to make this place, as comfortable as you can for the creative minds, right? And we're getting
No,
emotional. This is a place to get emotional because what are we if we're not artists que son chillonas? Like we are chillonas to the most. I love
the
it. What's your sign,
the
Melanie? Remind
what?
me your sign. Wait, remind me your sign.
I am a Gemini.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, that's
Gemini
right.
sun. I love it. I'm a Gemini. This is why we get along. You're a Virgo. Gemini, I'm a Sagittarius rising and I'm a Pisces moon. So, yeah.
I don't know why I asked that question because I don't know anything about signs, but I don't know for some reason when when you were crying, my friend Sissel, she's a cancer, and she's always
Yeah.
telling me like cancers are always like crying and emotional, but
Pisces moon. This is
Pisces,
what this is.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is my Pisces moon. I'm all
yeah,
water.
yeah, but we're here for it. We'll take it all in. And thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing your knowledge and just being a brilliant human being who just wants to like walk. Let's work this out. That's your energy, and I will always, take that and we're gonna hang out soon.
Yes, and let me know who to bill for this therapy session.
It was a mutual therapy. It was mutual therapy, Melanie. I'm here. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Un abrazo.
Gracias, Melanie. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening to our second episode of Disrupting the Algorithm. Please subscribe. Add, share, whatever you need to do. And if you're not in the grid, share it. Literally text it.
Consider being off
Text
the
the link.
grid.
Consider it. Thank y'all. Have a great day. Bye.